Hello, 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 everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I see some folks are already here with us in the chat on Facebook. I want to just thank you so much for tuning in today with Debbie's Dream Foundation so that we can cover this topic and just talk about just some important aspects when it comes to mental health and self care. My name is Aisha McDonald. I am a licensed mental health counselor and I am the director of training initiatives here at United Way of Broward County. I'm also a certified trauma and resiliency expert, and I am so grateful to be able to bring this presentation to you today so that we can talk about some really important topics that are affecting so many individuals right now in our society. And so, one of the things that I always highlight, I know that you guys are tuning in through Facebook. I know that you're joining us through the live. One of the most important things for me whenever I do any type of presentation is I absolutely enjoy participation. I want you to ask questions. I want you to share your experiences. I want to hear the little comments that you made. And so I know we have that chat box in the Facebook Live. You all can just drop your information. I have it playing on the side. So if you see me looking to the side, it's because I'm looking to see what you all are commenting on so that I can make sure that this is an interactive presentation for everybody who's here today. And so, thank you again, Debbie's Dream Foundation. You're doing such great work in the community, and it's such a pleasure to be able to collaborate with you. And I also always want to make sure that we're thanking all the generous sponsors that make presentations like this possible. And so, I am going to jump into our topic today because we are going to talk about, well, what is mental wellness and what is self care? And what does that look like and feel like? And how does it affect our lives as we're going through, right? And so I always like to start with just some definitions. And I hope that you can all see my screen. I hope that you're seeing the right screen at this time. But I want to talk about defining mental wellness and mental health and what that really looks like for us today. And so, mental health really includes our emotional or psychological, our social well-being. Mental health is really important aspect of what makes us human beings. It is really related to how we think, how we feel, how we act, and really how we function day to day as we navigate the world. And mental health is important at every phase of our lives. Mental health, just like physical health, is something that we is essential for us to make sure that we're keeping up with, because at every stage of our life, this is something that affects how we're able to make those choices, how we're able to operate in a relationship with others and interact with the world. And so, what happens when our functioning becomes a little bit affected is when we may start developing mental health conditions. And a mental health condition is something that affects our thinking, anything that affects our feelings, anything that affects our mood. And the development of these conditions can ultimately lead to individuals having a mental illness. So, a question that I get a lot of the times is, how does somebody get a mental illness? What made you get depression? What causes anxiety? What makes somebody mentally ill? And there isn't any one reason. There is no one thing that you can really pinpoint and say that that's it. That's what caused that person to become mentally ill, because it's really a factor of so many different things that affect us in our lives. It can be genetics. With any other illness, there is a genetic predisposition that causes some people to develop certain type of illnesses and some people not to. And mental illness is one such thing. If I have a family history, then I am more likely to be predisposed and at higher risk of developing these things myself. It can be environmental, it can be my lifestyle influences and choices, it can be just how the world is set up around me and what stressors are impacting a person that may cause the development of a mental health condition. What type of traumatic experiences have people had that can, impact the development of a condition like this? What is going on in people's lives? So, not just the hereditary factor, but what is going on in people's lives that may cause them to be at higher risk of developing mental health conditions than others? So, let's talk about some of the risk factors that may contribute to mental illness, right? One such risk factor is pretty much everything. There are so many different reasons that can impact the development of a mental illness in so many individuals. There's the traumatic factors, the genetic factors, the home lifestyle situations. What type of environmental things are going on around us? What's going on at work? What's going on at home? What's going on in my relationship? I know that we're all joining here through Debbie's Dream Foundation. So, an important factor that influences and impacts mental illness that I do want to talk about is having chronic illnesses. The development of chronic illnesses is something that can impact not only a person's physical health, but their mental well being, especially because of all the additional things that comes along with trying to manage a chronic illness, the medical issues that arise, the side effects from the medication that arise, sometimes being the caretaker or the surrounding family and loved ones of someone who's going through a chronic illness can really impact a person in negative ways that may cause the development of these types of mental health conditions. I am always pretty transparent in all the presentations that I do. So, since childhood, I have lived with a mom who has suffered from chronic illnesses herself. And as a child of someone that lives with a chronic illness, I have been impacted. My mental health has been impacted by her experiences. There has been times where I have felt more parentified than I should have been because of the caretaker stress of having to deal with that. And so these are so many things that we should consider. And again, you can't really pinpoint that one thing and say that that caused it, because when we look at this type of presentation and there's so many things and it might be really small on your screen right now, but I'm pretty sure you can see it's a lot of words. People are not all only impacted by any one thing. People are impacted by so many different things, as we've seen throughout the past 2 years while we have all collectively been experiencing this global pandemic, right? It wasn't just about COVID. While that had a huge influence on people's lives, there were so many other secondary factors that COVID contributed to. Financial stressors, social isolation, job uncertainty, so many other things that all compounded the stress that individuals were going through and heightened the feelings that they may be feeling. So, I want to stop right here and I want to turn this on to you guys. I want to turn this on to y'all right now. I want to hear from you. But in your life, what are some things that are personal red flags in your body, in your mind, in your emotions that indicate to you that you're now feeling negatively impacted by stress? What are some things as you are going through your life that may affect your functioning, may affect your interaction with others, may affect how you feel overall? And so I'm going to pause because I want to give you all a chance to put that in the chat box so that I can hear from you. What are some of the personal red flags that you have that tells you that you are being negatively impacted by stress? I'll give you one. For me, as we're waiting for you to put it in the chat box, I get migraines. Migraines are a huge red flag to me that I feel stressed out right now. And I can feel the migraines coming before they actually happen, right? I can feel the aura, I can feel the nausea, I can feel all the side effects of having the migraine. But that's a huge indication that makes me step back and go, wait, what is going on right now that is causing me to have these migraines continuously, right? And so I'm in the chat box with y'all on my phone, and I see some people are saying that Jess says she gets fatigued. You get tired, you feel agitated. That is a huge indication Sleep disturbance is a huge indication that there's some things going on in your body that may be affecting your functioning. Because when you don't sleep right or when you're overly tired, that is going to start impacting your brain, which impacts your mental well being. I see Celeste that says your mood. My mood gets affected a lot when I'm stressed out. I find myself yelling at my kids over simple things. And of course, I'll go back and I'll apologize afterwards because I feel bad about it. And it's things that may not have bothered me before, but all of a sudden, why are there so many Legos on the ground? Why are the Legos everywhere? Pick them up or else. And I feel myself lashing out at sometimes the people that are closest to me when my mood is all out of sorts because of the stress that I'm feeling. I see you said tension in your abdomen and jitters. Oh, oh my goodness, that's a good one. Let me break down why that happens. So stress, right? Stress impacts our body in a significant amount of ways, but one of the hugest ways that stress affects our bodies is the overproduction of cortisol, which was our stress hormone. And cortisol is a good chemical to have because that stress hormone can give us drive to make us more productive and get things done. But when we're overproducing it, especially in situations that don't call for it, that gastrointestinal system, the way that it's set up, it will tell you real quick, whoa, 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 I don't feel good. And I mean, when we think of kids, think about little kids, right? Little kids who are going through stuff at school, they're probably being bullied. They probably aren't doing well in their classes. They probably are negatively impacted by their surroundings. They may not be always able to tell us what their moods are, but little kids will tell us real quick, my tummy hurts. And I always tell grown up, pay attention to if your tummy hurts. Because if your tummy is hurting consistently, like with little kids, we are quick to go, okay, let's figure out what's making your tummy hurt. As adults, we need to figure out what's making our tummies hurt too. And if that's related to the stressors that we're going through. So that's a really, really good one because that cortisol production happens in the guts. And so that tension in your abdomen, that jitters. I see Amanda says you can't focus, nausea, easily agitated and frustrated. Amanda, why are you talking about me? These are all mine things. This is all of what I can't go through. Sometimes when the can't focus becomes so extreme. The can't focus is actually a detriment because sometimes I'm stressed out because I have so much work to do. And I have so much work to do, so much on my to-do list, but my body is so impacted by the stress that I can't focus and I can't get anything done. So here I am stressed out at having too much to do, but then the stress is making me unable to do anything. And it just becomes this weird cycle of me getting more stressed out because now things are being more delayed. I see, Soraya, you said for you, doing more than necessary at work, in my relationships, striving for perfection, suppressing or ignoring my emotions, or experience and not creating verbal boundaries and verbalizing my needs. Soraya, I feel like I want to talk to you one on one because all of that is phenomenally insightful. That is so important to understand that sometimes stress looks like overachieving. Sometimes we drive ourselves to this idea of I have to get it right, I have to get it done, I have to be perfect all the time. That then keeps us with these high expectations of self that are just unrealistic. Not only are they unattainable, but they're unrealistic. And we're in this intense race, right? And we the only ones running. Like, who are we in a race against in life except ourselves? And we're pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing ourselves so much. And that self awareness, thank you, DDF, for telling her this is a great self awareness. Yes, that pushing and pushing and pushing is also going to be so negatively impacted by that imposter syndrome that we have because we're striving for perfection, but then the imposter syndrome is on the other shoulder telling us, well, you're never going to be good enough. And then the perfectionism is like, but you have to be not only good enough, but the best that there ever was. talk about being negatively impacted by stress, especially when it's your own internal cognitive distortions, really. These views about yourself that aren't really based on anything. And it's hard for us to navigate the world. And so, thank you all so much. These were some great examples. But one of the things that I noticed that you all mentioned is that you're aware of being negatively impacted by stress, not only by your mood, but also by the physical feelings in your body. And so a lot of the times when people think of mental health, they think of mental health as this like obscure things that happen in an abstract parts of your body that's unrelated to your actual being, right? And I'm like, no, it's happening in your brain. And here's the thing, right? If my brain is affected by the stressors and conditions of my life, how is it going to be able to function right? And guess what? My brain controls every single part of my body. So if my brain can't act right, how is my the rest of my body going to be able to function appropriately when the brain is the one that's sending signals everywhere? I see, Sarah, you said you too are a trauma mental health therapist and wellness coach for women of color. Kudos to you. Love it. That Black girl magic is fantastic. And yes, the strong Black woman syndrome. And even beyond the strong Black woman syndrome, a syndrome that we see so heavily in our society, that's superwoman syndrome, that we should be able to take on and do for everybody else, even to the detriment of ourselves. And let's talk about how that impacts us. And then, in addition to that, right? In addition to having these syndromes that tell us that we have to strive not only for perfection, but to be superheroes, when we do recognize that we're being negatively impacted, when we do acknowledge and are self aware enough to go, wait, no, something's going on with me. Let's talk about how much the stigma of mental health sometimes keeps us from getting the help that we need. Sometimes keeps us from wanting to admit that there's something wrong because no, no, no. I don't want people to pity me. I don't want people to judge me. I don't want people to think that I am being weak. Or I'm afraid of the labels that this is going to give me. Or how can I be a therapist in need of therapy? Then people are going to think I'm not a good enough therapist, right? And somebody pointed out something really good to me when I myself uttered those same words. Somebody said, well, heart surgeons don't perform surgery on themselves. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, you could be the best at what you're doing, but you still can't help yourself in the same way that you help others. You're still going to need to go to another expert. So many of us fall into a role of being a helper, being a healer, being the person who takes care of others around us. But that stigma keeps us from being able to accept the help from others when we need it. And it's so important that we're really acknowledging and understanding how that stigma impacts us. Because sometimes, even as self aware as we are, when we're recognizing that we're going through it, we don't always seek the help that we need. So, let's talk about mental well being and what that looks like and how we can really. Alexa, stop. Sorry about that. My Alexa was talking to everybody. So let's talk about the mental well-being and how we can really find ways to promote, maintain positive mental health as we're going through whatever it is that we're going through. One, and I'm a therapist, so this is always going to be my first recommendation to everyone. Get help. And that help can look different for different people, right? But there's help out there. There's so many different ways that we can get professional help when we're recognizing and determining that, you know what, I'm not okay. I'm not okay right now. I haven't been okay for a while. I'm not doing well and I need somebody to talk to. And here's the thing, you don't have to wait until it becomes a mental illness to get professional help. It doesn't have to have gotten to the point of you having a diagnosis yet. It can be a preventative measure. We do preventative things in healthcare to make sure that we're okay. We get screenings all the time. We go to our physicals once a year. And so getting professional help doesn't mean that I have to hit rock bottom to reach out. connecting with others, finding ways to stay positive, being physically active if it's physically possible for you, helping others, getting enough sleep. Sleep is such an important aspect of our mental well being. It's something that I tell my 4-year-old and 5-year-old, right? Hey, you need to go to sleep at night so your brain can regenerate. And here we are as adults pushing, 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 sleep revenging ourselves sometimes, staying up at all hours of the night, and then trying to operate on 3, 4 hours of sleep for an entire day, going through work, going through life like a zombie. It is so important that we're really paying attention to our sleep health and how that's impacting our mental well being. Practicing, and I want to put an asterisk on this one, practicing healthy coping skills. And then what are the self care activities that we can really formulate that can help us as we go through life? So before we get into, I see, yes, Amanda, I think that is an excellent point. As far as dealing with cancer, people should seek help at the very beginning of the process to help prevent stress. I agree with you because it doesn't get easier, not only for the person experiencing it, but a lot of the times for the family members themselves. Again, for full transparency, I come from a family with a history of and a hereditary predisposition to cancer on my father's side. Almost everyone has died from some form of cancer. Um, Grandaunt, grandmother, granduncle, cousins. This is just our family history. It's a knowledge that we have. I know that when I go in to get my physical, it's extra screening that my doctors and my specialists do because they know my family history, right? But I've not only, a lot of the times we focus on the person who's ill, and I'm looking at the caregivers and I'm like, you may need to talk to somebody as well because this is impacting your life. And I agree, VDF, that is a great example of the preventative care that we can do at the beginning of the journey. Because again, for me, why wait till it reaches rock bottom, right? So before we get into some of the self-care practices right now, in this moment, in this room, I want us to do a little breathing together. It's not going to be long, but I want us just to really stop. Thank you all for being here and tuning in. And then let's
Hi, and welcome to Headspace. So, no matter what's going on in your life right now, no matter how many thoughts are racing around your mind, no matter how the body's feeling, just take a moment to sit down and take a big, deep breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, a sense of taking in fresh air, the lungs expanding. As you breathe out, a sense of letting go of any stress in the body, in the mind, just feeling the muscles soften and relax. And close your eyes if you'd like to. One more, breathing deeply in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just take a moment to pause. Allow the thoughts to come and go. And then just gently opening the eyes again.
thank you all for taking that breathing moment for me. Sometimes I have to remind myself just to slow down. And it's interesting because breathing is something that our brain just automatically tells our body to do that we don't think about doing. But sometimes throughout the day, throughout our process, we forget to breathe. And yes, DDF, I love me a good breathing activity. And that wasn't that long. I think sometimes when we think of meditating and mindfulness and self-care, we think of you, oh, it's gonna take a half hour out of my day that I'm gonna have to find a dark room and sit aside. And I'm like, sometimes you can just breathe for 30 seconds. That's it. That was a minute and 7 seconds, but somehow so much more helpful to pushing us forward through the rest of the day. And a practice of self care that we can do in little or no time. So let's talk about self-care a little bit, y'all. Let's talk about why self-care is important, why we need to be practicing self-care. I see Jessica says your breathing gets shallow when you're stressed, and then you get lightheaded and you hold your breath when you get tense. Yes. Our body literally, in moments of stress, in moments of distress, in moments of crisis, our body forgets how to breathe. And guess what? What's happening when I'm not breathing properly? I am intaking less oxygen. My brain is getting less juice. My brain starts panicking about, wait, what's going on? Why am I not getting the juice that I need? So it starts sending signals all over the body that something must be wrong because I'm not getting what I'm supposed to be getting. And it just turns us all upside down. And I mean, there's sometimes, especially I'll be talking to my sister and I'm on the phone and I'm ranting and I'm venting and I'm telling her, and in the middle of me, like emitting all these emotions and venting it out, she'll be like, hey, stop. You need to breathe. I don't want to breathe right now. I'm telling you about what happened. And she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Just, I need you to breathe. Right? It is. The body has a mind of its own when we're in that state of stress. And sometimes it takes that reminder from the other person. Hey, you need to breathe right now. And I'll be like, oh, okay. Like I was telling you. And I feel that calmness in my body once I remember and I remind myself, hey, you need to breathe right now. So self care is important. Self care is something that we promote. Self care is trendy. I'll say that self care is trendy right now. Everybody is talking about it. Everybody is saying it. Everybody's putting on presentations. But are we really doing it? I like to tell people that, especially those of us who work in helping professionals, we're like doctors who smoke. We know exactly what we should be doing. We know exactly why we should be doing it. But do we always do it ourselves, or do we just put on presentations like this where we tell people how to do it and then go about our day? So, self care is a trendy topic where everybody is, it's the hot thing for the summer, right? But sometimes there's some challenges to being able to practice self care. And we have to be mindful of that, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. It's easy to say, just do it. But what is going on in a person's life that may prevent them from being able to practice it? And how can we challenge that, right? Sometimes people are too stressed out to practice self care. Let's be real. Sometimes that stress is all encompassing. And I have too many things to do to worry about finding time to practice self care. I remember when we were in the midst of the quarantine, when it first started, right? At the time that we went into COVID quarantine in March 16th, 2020 was the date that I got sent home from work, right? And I remember I was sent home, but my kids' daycare closed. And at the time, my children were 2 and 1, 2 years old and 1 year old, right? And so I still had to work. I'm home, quarantine, working full time. Now with two toddlers, being a full-time mom, a full-time stay-at-home mom while being a full-time working mom, while potty training, teaching them ABCs, cooking them food, making sure I'm on Zoom, making sure I'm muted on Zoom, and trying to navigate and manage all of this. And I remember a friend telling me, oh, you need to find time for self-care. And I was like, how? How and when? Where am I going to be able to take time out of my day that is already so bogged down with so many things? The idea of even trying to figure out what to do was stressful. But let's be mindful of that. But sometimes people may feel too stressed out to even think of this. What can we do to help? Burnout, having boundaries, and sometimes boundaries where you're the person that is being depended on and pulled in so many different ways. And a huge boundary that affects so many of us is the inability to tell people no. Sometimes I am telling everybody else yes that I don't even tell myself yes. Workaholism, we are a capitalistic society that strives on productivity and the push to be working and to that perfectionism, right? that comes back up again. Soraya, you mentioned that earlier. That need and that drive to overachieve. For those of us who have chronic illnesses, mobility issues might be a problem. Am I able to practice self care if I have concerns? And sometimes when we promote ideas of self care, sometimes it may be with an ableist lens that we aren't even aware of. The amount of times I've heard people who tell me to practice self care by doing yoga or going to the gym. And it's all good and well. Exercise is a wonderful tool to promote to help people practice better self care, not only for their physical health, but their mental well being. Beautiful. But if we are looking at things with an ableist lens, then sometimes it doesn't allow us to really contemplate, does the person have the ability to practice those types of self care? Can somebody with limitations in their mobility go to a yoga class? Can somebody find themselves in a gym environment that is going to be conducive to their physical abilities? We have to be mindful of these things and these challenges because it's easy to say, well, you're just not trying well enough, when there may be other things that are going on that are preventing the person from being able to achieve that. People pleasing and always feeling as if we have, again, that yes, being that yes person to everybody else but yourself. Pain management, especially when it comes to chronic illnesses, right? The level of pain that individuals may be going through that may be their status quo, that leaves us unaware of how it is going to affect their body to be able to try some of those self-care techniques. If I am in a, and I don't know about y'all, but when I'm in a constant state of pain, my mood is heavily negatively affected. I am snappish with everybody around me because I am feeling physical pain. And when there's no solution to that pain, it doesn't matter what you tell me, my mood is not going to improve because the pain remains, right? And my brain starts sending signals to all sorts of places in my body saying, hey, we're in pain. We can't deal with this right now. We feeling too much. Compassion fatigue can be a challenge to practicing self-care. Vicarious trauma for those of us who are working in professions where we are dealing with individuals' traumatic experiences and helping them navigate it and then being impacted and sometimes feeling the symptomology of the trauma, even though we weren't the ones who went through those experiences. And then the life changes and transitions as we get older. I don't know about y'all, but I turned 30 and my back went, nope. I don't know what it was. I was agile, flexible, dancing up a storm in my 20s. And then I turned 30 and my back went, nope. My back was like, girl, it don't work like it used to no more. Life changes and transitions that come with age, that comes with moving, that comes with just different things that happen to us can really impact our ability to practice self-care. I remember talking to my partner about, a particular city that I was like, oh, it would be so cool to live down here in this neighborhood. And I looked around and I was like, but they don't have a lot of green spaces. How would we raise our kid in an environment, in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of trees, there's not a lot of grassy areas? That's a change that sometimes we don't even consider. Sometimes our environment, our living environment isn't conducive to us being able to practice positive self-care. But why should we find those methods of self-care though? Why is it important? Because it's so helpful in so many ways. Self-care isn't selfish is something that I repeatedly told individuals that I work with, not only clients, but coworkers too. Because sometimes the idea of taking time for myself, I can't take time for myself when I have so much to do for everybody else. But self-care means that I can practice things that make me feel healthier, that make me feel well, that make me more productive at not only doing my job, but make me more of a better person in my relationships, right? It can help me to feel accomplished and better my functioning. There's so many dimensions of being able to practice self-care, psychological self-care techniques, emotional self-care techniques, physical ones, if it is conducive to your ability to do so. Social. I'll tell you my favorite social self-care. It's called brunch. If you invite me to brunch, I will be there because that is the best meal of any day for in my life. Spiritual self-care. If you have a faith-based connection to a higher power, right? That is something that can be so impactful in giving people hope, giving people something to hold on to, giving people someone that they feel as if they can rely on beyond themselves. And even professional self care. I'll tell you a professional self care that I have learned to practice over time that I had to get there, but I'm doing it now is not responding to emails when it's not work hours. I'll read them and then I will swipe and put them as unread so that I'll answer them on Monday morning. I know DDF loves a good self care brunch. I think just an idea thrown out there. Imagine if DDF hosted a self care brunch. I'll help organize and I'll be there to eat, of course. But how are we practicing things that can help us promote more positive self care? And why is it important for us to be able to do so? Why is it so essential? Self care sometimes means checking in with myself and asking my body, hey, what do you need right now? Sometimes I go and I stand before the pantry because I'm one of those. It's very stereotypical, but I hate to admit it. Please do not tell my husband that I ever admitted this, guys. But I don't always know what I want to eat. I know I'm hungry, but if you ask me, well, what do you want? I don't know. Do you want Taco Bell? No, I don't want that. I know what I don't want, but I don't always know what I want to eat. So sometimes my self care is standing before the pantry and going, what looks good? What does my body need right now? What nourishes me? And let's be clear, what is self care for one person may differ for somebody else. And what's self care for me today may not work for me tomorrow. So, how am I navigating that? And how can I really understand what my body needs in that moment and what's helpful? Right. So, how do I practice it? What can I do? How can I make sure that I'm doing self care in a way that is going to be beneficial in reducing my stress? Here's another thing, improving my immune system. Because when my body is better able to positively function in ways that are helpful to my mental health, that ultimately affects my physical health as well. Increase my productivity. Imagine how much work I can get done if I'm not always feeling fatigued and tired. Right, Jessica? If I get the appropriate amounts of sleep that I need, that's self care. That makes me more productive during the day, but also having a higher level of self esteem and feelings of self worth, not expecting perfectionism from myself, but also admitting that I am good enough. I am good enough just how I am and with what I'm doing. So I want to hear from you because I like ideas and DDF already gave us one. We're gonna host, I'm putting it out there, fingers crossed to the universe, a self-care brunch, right? But I want to hear from you all some other ideas. And I want to hone in on your hobbies. Because a lot of the times when we think of self care, we think of self care as like extreme things that we have to do or expensive things that are going to cost money. But sometimes it's our simple hobbies. So, what are some of your favorite hobbies? Or what do you do to de stress when you are feeling that negative impact, when you feel those symptoms that you all, that tension in your body, that fatigue, that tiredness? What are some of your favorite things to do, your favorite hobbies that helps you to de-stress? I'll give you one. I'll give you an example from a really good friend of mine who has been in remission for 5 years, officially cancer free. But a hobby that she discovered when she was going through treatment that she has now continued for so many years is knitting. She would she got a needle, got some yarn, and started knitting while she would sit in the lobby and wait. And it was something that she discovered would calm her nerves, but also something she discovered was she was really talented at. Now she knits everything. Every baby in her life has a blanket that she made. has the little caps. Everybody has outfits that she's made. So, what are some of your self care practices that you may not even realize you've been doing as self care all these years? So, I see meditation, lovely, breath work, so important because, again, when we can calm that breath, we can calm that stress. Going for walks in nature, I love that. And listening to feel good music. Just so you know, Beyonce album is going to drop on July 29th. So if you're looking for feel good music, I am always going to promote Beyonce. Crafting and making jewelry, nice, Jess. I love that. Jewelry making is not only self care, but if you ever want to start putting things on Etsy, you can make some money. See, they think it's a cool practice too. I see Ricardo says walk in the park, video gaming, talk about de-stressing. Although sometimes the video games can stress you out, but then the playing the video games helps you with the stress. So I like it. I like it. Painting and looking for collectibles at thrift stores. I love me a cheap self-care activity. And thrift stores are fantastic. We have some really good thrift stores here in Broward County that has some magnificent things that you would never find anywhere else, especially when you're looking for records. Again, going back to the feel good music, right? Celeste says piano music and scented candles. I feel like those can even go together. Have the candle burning while playing the piano. That sounds delightful. I love it. I see, oh my God, thrifting. So I'm guessing that you like it. You agree with that one. Nice. These are some good self-care techniques. I'll share mine since you all shared. I always feel like I need to reciprocate. So thank you all for sharing. I'm basic. I have very simple self-care techniques. I am going to pretend and say that one of my self-care techniques is cooking because that sounds cool, but it's really eating. Eating makes me feel happy. Food is yummy. I love food all the time. And when I cook the food, I get to eat the food. And binge watching TV. It's really simple, but it's something that I love to do. I remember when, again, we went into quarantine, I had a presentation where I asked people this same question. And somebody's response was, I like to go on really expensive vacations to exotic locations where I can have spa treatments and massages and pedicures. And I was like, all right, that sounds superb. More power to you. However, ain't nobody going nowhere in 2020. There's no flights anywhere. We're all on lockdown. What are you doing now in this moment when you can't practice what you used to practice before? It doesn't have to be extreme. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be something simple. And sometimes it can be spending 15 minutes on TikTok watching videos about cats because TikTok is hilarious. It can be binge watching Bridgerton on Netflix because I have read all the books and now I'm going to watch all the seasons, right? It can be having ice cream. It can be simple things that, you know what, anything that makes your body feel good, anything that makes your stress levels get lower, anything that helps you to navigate this world that we're living in without feeling bogged down and pressured all the time. And so, love all of these things that you all pointed out. And I'm going to encourage you to make that some regular self care routines that you're practicing to help bring you joy. I'm a Marie Kondo, y'all. What sparks joy in what you're doing, right? If you don't have anything, if you can't think of a self care technique, well, play self care bingo. What are some things that I can do to get bingo this week? Take a nap, always yummy, always lovely to take a nap. Sit quietly, listen to music, write out a bucket list. And you don't have to write a bucket list for the rest of your life. You can write a bucket list for the end of the year. What do I want to do and see before December hits? I want to go to Lion Country Safari. That's something that I'm going to add to my bucket list. I love Lion Country Safari. The zebras are cool. I want to go to Lion Country Safari. I see Jess says, I love a good nap on a rainy Sunday. And you know what? We in the middle of summer in Florida. It's monsoon season. You're going to have many rainy Sundays until October. So use those opportunities to practice self care. washing your sheets, celebrating small wins, having dance parties. What can we do to really help practice behaviors at, at least several times a week that helps us to reflect on how we feel and help us to de-stress, help us to deal with the challenges that we all are going through, help us to deal with, living with these chronic medical illnesses that so many people are going through or you're watching your family members go through. What can we do? I see somebody says freshly washed sheets are the best. And like I always grumble when it's time to change the sheets. I grumble. Oh my God, there's so many sheets. I'm a person that has way too many pillows on my bed. So I'm always annoyed when I do have to change my sheets because I'm like, why do I need so many pillows? Blah, 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 blah. And then the afterwards, when that clean sheet and it's crisp and it's cool and you slide into that comforter that smells like gain. Oh, ooh, beautiful, right? And so, how can I do that? But also, how can I make sure that I'm getting support from the people around me, whoever those people may be? Am I speaking with my loved ones about my feelings and what I'm going through? Maybe a life coach or a peer specialist, if that's possible for you. If you are connected to a therapist, if you do have a dietitian to help, because maybe eating is your self care, but in the state that you are right now, that physical side effects of eating certain foods don't make you feel good. How can I speak with my healthcare professionals to make sure that these self care techniques I'm practicing are actually beneficial for me? And then, because we live in an age of technology, one of the things I will always do is tell people, hey, we are always connected on our phones. Most of you are probably watching this Facebook Live through your phones. We always, my daughter says, Mommy, you always have your phone in your hand. And I'm like, yeah, it's my toy. It's mommy's toy. It's a grown up toy. It's for me. Well, what are some apps that I can download? And you don't have to download all of these, but you can look at them and see, hey, which one works for me? Insight Timer is beautiful. It has some really good mindfulness activities and meditations that are guided on a variety of topics. You can pick anything that you're feeling, and Insight Timer will try to connect you with a guided meditation that can help. The Calm app strides, using spaces like Talkspace, having a 5-minute journal activity just to talk about what did I feel today? One of the things that I love doing and practicing is making gratitude journals, right? Because sometimes I get so bogged down with all the negatives that are happening in my life that it's really hard for me to notice and realize that sometimes some good things happen too. And the good things don't have to be major things. The good things can be something simple, like Beyonce is releasing an album at the end of July. That's a good thing in my life. If y'all haven't tuned in yet, you'll notice there's a theme to my obsession, right? But putting things down in my gratitude journal that can remind me that despite all the negativity, good things are still happening, right? And so I see Jess says I use Good Mind app for affirmations. Finding those affirmations that you can connect to, finding those things that can really encourage and promote you. So looking at apps, and sometimes the apps can be playing Angry Birds to distract you from everything, playing Candy Crush. They might not be listed as self-care apps, but if they make you feel better, yes, go ahead and practice them too. Yes, you are so right. Gratitude is a magnet for more goodness. You seem like you've read a couple of the books that I've read. I see Jess says Wordle. Now let me tell you about Wordle though. I love me a good Wordle, but it be stressing me out sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I'm on the fourth word and I'm just like, why will I never figure this out? There's another one called Quordle, which is when you try to solve 4 Wordles at the same time. I did that for like 3 weeks and then I said, nah. Then there's another one called Hurdle, where you're not guessing words, you're guessing songs based on like 2 seconds of them playing a tune. The only one that I have ever gotten right on the first try is Don't Stop Believing by Journey, because everybody recognizes that in the first 3 seconds. I have failed at every other one. But yes, if you enjoy Wordle, go ahead and do it. Quick backstory about that, since you brought it up. Wordle was actually created by a guy who, during the pandemic, his wife was feeling negative effects on her mental well being. And he realized that the social isolation was causing her to feel a little bit depressed from not being able to connect with friends and families like she could before. And so he created this game for his wife to play. He coded it, created it, and put it on her phone. And she loved it so much that she would share it with her friends. And her friends loved it so much that they would share it. And ultimately, it became so popular that the New York Times bought it out for him. But it was originally only designed to be a self care activity for his wife during the pandemic. And I always think about that every time I play that. Imagine somebody loves you so much that they made you a self care activity. But thank you all so much for joining me. I always share my references and my resources that I get information from. But I think I want to leave you all here with remembering that you can't pour from an empty cup. It is so important that we're practicing self care and promoting positive mental wellness so that we can take care of ourselves no matter what we're going through in life, because life is hard, especially when there's additional stressors that our people are experiencing. And so please find some time to practice self care and take care of yourself. And I'm going to open it up to you. Any thoughts, any comments, any experiences that anybody wants to share in the chat box? We got a little bit of time left, so I want to open it up to you all right now. Any other self care that you want to encourage other people to practice, or my favorite, any TV shows that you think I should tune in and watch? Because, like I said, binge watching TV is my self care. So you're welcome. Very, very welcome, CDF. Welcome, Ricardo. Jess says eating healthy is another one I use. Love it. I absolutely enjoy eating, and eating healthy is obviously good for all of us. But thank you all so much. And I'm going to turn it over back to Debbie's Dream Foundation now. Thank you for joining in, everybody. It was fun. And I'm always grateful to hear thoughts and ideas from everybody else. If anybody ever wants to get in touch with me, that is my email address on the screen. You can always shoot me an email. Or if you are feeling so inclined, shoot me some recipes of foods that you like to cook, because that gives me ideas for what I can do. Thank you, Carrie Ann. Prioritizing sessions like these is self-care. Absolutely. It don't take much. You can just put it on in the background and have it play. So thank you. Thank you, Loretta. Thank you, Celeste. It was so great to have you all here. I appreciate it. Thank you to my friends and families and colleagues who tuned in. Having your support is always appreciated because I don't feel like I'm alone. What about children? For some of the parents in this community to do things with their children to practice self care. Really, really good questions. Thank you. We got 5 minutes, so I have a little bit of time. Finding ways to do things that your kids enjoy, whatever those things look like. I have outdoors children. I am not an outdoorsy person. I sweat a lot and I'm allergic to everything. And so nature just makes me itchy. But my kids and my partner love doing outdoorsy things. So I have prompted myself to try to enjoy outdoor activities with them, going to parks with them, having picnics outside, literally as easy as getting a pub sub and putting a blanket in a park and sitting down and eating with them. They find that so enjoyable. Watching things that they like to watch. I find myself sometimes that as parents, we just put our kids to sit and have them watch TV while we watch our own things. And I try to really incorporate family movie nights and asking them what they want to watch. And sometimes it's fun to see them enjoy things from like their lens. Let me tell you that watching The Little Mermaid as a parent gives me a whole new perspective, because my daughter is obsessed with Ariel and I'm here like, yo, the king was right. This is ridiculous. This girl don't know what she wants. Oh my God. And so trying to enjoy things from their perspective. On those rainy Sundays that Jess enjoys, building forts, building forts in the house and popping popcorn and eating it under a blanket. Um, but one of the most important things for me to really incorporate is finding ways to enjoy the things that I know my kids like to do. A lot of the times as parents, we try to impose on them. I'll tell you something like really, I got into TikTok because I had a teenage relative that was staying at my house during the quarantine, and she didn't talk to anybody. Teenagers don't want to have conversations about their feelings, but she was always on her phone. And I found that I sounded like my mom after a while because I was like, get off your phone and talk to me. And it wasn't helpful. And so one day I asked her, what are you always watching on your phone? And she was like, TikTok. And I was like, what is this TikTok thing you speak about? Let me see. And I started just watching videos with her, and she would send me videos and send me memes, finding things that they enjoy doing and really being mindful of their mobility issues as well, because sometimes they don't have the capacity to do what we think they should be doing. But finding ways to make sure that we have shared interests and shared connections. And it is always interesting to me sometimes how much we forget what it felt like to be kids, because we get into this mind mode of like being an adult and having responsibility and bills to pay. And sometimes, the things we yell at kids for, when we were kids, there were things that we loved to do too. Swinging on swings, going to a park and swinging on swings. As an adult, wow, I'm just like, yeah, this is fun. And putting ourselves really in the perspective of looking at the world through their eyes. So I always promote just trying to engage them in activities that are fun for them and that they'll enjoy doing. But very good question. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining in. This was great. I really, really appreciated it. And I know that DDF has a lot more topics in store. So hope you can join in the future to join those as well. Thank you all.